Imagine walking into a grocery store. You grab a few essentials, milk, eggs, bread, maybe a few snacks. Nothing expensive. The cashier tells you the total. You pull out a small piece of plastic, tap it once, and just like that, you walk away. No cash leaves your wallet, no money disappears from your bank account. At least, it doesn't feel like it. That simple swipe takes less than 2 seconds. But for millions of Americans, it's the beginning of a financial story that can last for years. Today, credit cards are everywhere. They're in our wallets, our phones, our online shopping carts. They're used to buy groceries, gas, vacations, even morning coffee. In fact, for many Americans, using a credit card feels more normal than using cash. And that's exactly why they've become so powerful. Because credit cards don't just change how we pay, they change how we think about money. Every purchase feels smaller, every expense feels easier, and every swipe creates a tiny distance between spending and feeling the pain of spending. At first, that doesn't seem like a problem. You promise yourself you'll pay it off next month. Then something unexpected happens. A car repair, a medical bill, an expensive holiday season. You can't pay the full balance anymore, so you pay the minimum instead. It feels harmless. After all, that's what the bank says you can pay. Then another month passes, and another. The balance barely moved, but the interest never stops growing. Before you realize it, you're no longer using the credit card for convenience. You're using it to survive, and you're not alone. Today, Americans collectively owe well over $1 trillion in credit card debt. That's the highest level in history. Millions of people make payments every single month. Yet somehow, their debt barely gets smaller. So how did a tool designed for convenience turn into one of America's biggest financial traps? And more importantly, who actually benefits when people stay in debt? Because the answer is far bigger than credit cards alone. It's a system carefully designed to keep money moving and interest growing. In this documentary, we're going to uncover how credit cards really work, why so many Americans struggle to escape them, and how one simple swipe can quietly cost thousands of dollars. This is the hidden story behind America's credit card debt crisis. Have you ever wondered why spending with a credit card feels so much easier than spending cash? It's not just your imagination. Scientists have been studying this phenomenon for decades, and the results are surprisingly consistent. People spend significantly more when they use credit cards compared to cash. The reason starts with something psychologists call the pain of paying. When you hand over physical cash, your brain immediately recognizes that something valuable is leaving your possession. You literally feel the cost of the purchase. But with a credit card, that painful moment almost disappears. You simply tap, swipe, or click a button online. The purchase feels almost effortless. Your brain enjoys the reward immediately, while the actual cost is pushed into the future. That's one of the biggest psychological advantages credit card companies have. They separate the pleasure of buying from the pain of paying. And that small delay changes human behavior dramatically. Studies have shown that people are more willing to buy expensive items, order larger meals, and make impulse purchases when they don't have to physically hand over cash. The less visible the payment feels, the less your brain treats it as a loss. Modern technology has made this effect even stronger. Today, millions of Americans pay with a fingerprint, their phone, or even their smartwatch. Sometimes, the payment happens so quickly, they barely realize they've spent money at all. Every improvement in convenience makes spending feel even more natural. But convenience has a hidden cost, because every effortless purchase still creates a real financial obligation. The bill simply arrives later. By then, most people have already forgotten many of the purchases they made. And that's exactly when debt begins to quietly grow. Most people don't fall into massive credit card debt overnight. It usually begins with one missed payment. Maybe money is tight this month, so they decide to pay only the minimum amount due. It feels like a temporary solution, just one difficult month. But that single decision quietly changes everything, because the remaining balance doesn't disappear. It rolls into the next month, and that's where interest begins working against you. Every month, interest is added to whatever balance is left. Then, the following month, you don't just pay interest on what you borrowed, you also pay interest on the previous interest. This is known as compound interest. When you're investing, compound interest helps you build wealth. But when you're in debt, it works in the exact opposite direction. It slowly makes your debt grow faster than you expect. Now imagine adding another purchase, maybe groceries, maybe fuel, maybe an emergency expense. The balance keeps getting bigger, the interest keeps getting larger, and the minimum payment barely keeps up. Many people believe they're making progress because they never miss a payment, but in reality, most of their monthly payment is going toward interest, not reducing the original debt. That's why balances can stay almost unchanged for years. Even when someone pays every single month, the debt slowly becomes normal. Instead of asking, how can I pay this off? People begin asking, can I at least make this month's payment? And that's the moment when debt stops being temporary and quietly becomes part of everyday life. Imagine receiving your credit card bill every month. You notice a small number called minimum payment due. It seems harmless. Sometimes it's only $20, $50, or $100. Compared to the total balance, it feels surprisingly affordable. Many people believe paying the minimum means they're managing their debt responsibly. After all, the bank says the payment is enough, so everything should be fine, right? Not exactly. The minimum payment is designed to keep your account active, not to help you become debt-free quickly. In fact, it can keep you in debt for years. Here's why. Most of your minimum payment doesn't reduce the amount you originally borrowed. Instead, a large portion goes toward interest and fees. Only a small amount actually lowers your balance. That means next month, interest is calculated again on almost the same balance. The cycle repeats month after month, year after year. Imagine borrowing $5,000. If you only make minimum payments, you could end up paying thousands more in interest before the debt finally disappears. Some people spend twice or even 3 times the original purchase price, and all because they believed the minimum payment was enough. The payment keeps your credit card alive, but it also keeps your debt alive. That's why millions of Americans stay trapped, even though they never miss a payment. For millions of Americans, credit isn't just about borrowing money. It's a number that quietly follows them everywhere. That number is called a credit score. Banks use it. Credit card companies use it. Landlords check it before renting an apartment. Some employers even look at it during hiring. A good credit score can make life easier. A bad one can make almost everything more expensive. Here's the strange part. To build a good credit score, you actually need to borrow money first. If you've never used credit, you may have little or no credit history. That makes lenders nervous. So people start using credit cards, not because they need them, but because they need a credit score. Then comes another challenge. Using too much of your available credit can lower your score. Missing even a single payment can damage it for years. Closing old credit cards can also reduce your score. Suddenly, the system becomes confusing. People aren't just managing money anymore. They're managing a number they can't physically see, but one that affects major financial decisions. This creates constant pressure. People become afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes they even stay in debt simply because they're worried paying everything off or closing accounts might hurt their score. The system was created to measure financial behavior, but for many Americans, it has become another source of financial stress. So, can America actually escape the credit card debt trap? The answer is yes, but it isn't easy. For individuals, the first step is understanding how debt really works. Not just the monthly payment, but the interest quietly growing behind it. Many financial experts recommend paying more than the minimum whenever possible. Even a small extra payment each month can reduce years of future interest. Avoiding unnecessary impulse purchases can also make a huge difference over time. Building an emergency savings fund helps people rely less on credit cards during unexpected situations. Financial education is another key solution. Many adults graduate from school without ever learning how credit cards, interest rates, or credit scores actually work. That knowledge gap costs millions of people thousands of dollars. Banks, credit card companies, and consumers all play a role in this system. But at the end of the day, every swipe, every payment, and every financial decision belongs to the person holding the card. Credit cards themselves aren't the enemy. When used wisely, they can offer convenience, security, and valuable rewards. The real danger begins when convenience replaces discipline, because debt rarely starts with one huge purchase. It grows through hundreds of small decisions that seem harmless in the moment. And that's the lesson behind America's credit card crisis. The plastic card isn't controlling people's lives. The habits behind it are. The question isn't whether credit cards are good or bad. The real question is, who is actually in control, you or your debt?